Okay, welcome. Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started because we have set this from 7 till 8 o'clock. So we will crack on and then we'll let people join as and when. So good evening. I'm Kelly Gordon, Executive Lead for NETBALLHer. I will introduce the other lovely faces that we've got on the screen shortly. I just wanted to go through some housekeeping first and then we'll crack on. So bits of housekeeping just for those who are joining, just to be aware of. You will see that we've automatically put you on off camera, off mute. If I could just ask that you could keep off camera or off mute, just so we've got 500, we haven't got 500, we've got 150 people registered, and it'll just be easier for bandwidth if we keep everybody off screen and off mute so we can see the people that are talking. So if I just ask you could do that, would be great. We are recording, as I just said, so that's for this to be shared on the NETBALLHer website and with other people that are unable to join them this evening. We will be using the chat function for people to answer questions along the way, but also to introduce yourselves. So if people have got any questions and they want to ask to anybody in particular, state their name. So if it's a question you want to ask for Eboni, state your question and then put Ebony's name next to it. And also, whilst we're doing the warm-up, please introduce yourselves and say maybe why you've joined this evening. We've got 10 minutes set aside for the end for the questions. So Alice, you give a little wave. Alice is on the chat and looking at the questions and will be theming the questions and then joining us on the call to ask the person the relevant questions. So hopefully that'll work nice and smoothly. We'll see how we get on with that. We did ask for people to send in questions when they registered. So we've looked at those questions and hopefully most of the questions will be answered through the content that we're going to deliver. But again, if they're not, use the chat function and we'll hopefully get to those at the end. Just a final point that we did say in your join instructions, that just to note that this webinar provides general health information only. While we aim for accuracy, this content is not personalised medical advice and we cannot answer individual medical questions. If you have health concerns, please consult your GP or another qualified healthcare professional. Okay, so all of that out the way, we will crack on. So good evening. For those that are joining, I'm Kelly Gordon, Executive Lead for NETBALLHer, and I will be your host and setting the conversation for the evening. So just a bit of context for this evening, we have launched a campaign called I Wish I Knew, which is part of NETBALLHer. And as part of that, the campaign, Moving Through Motherhood, is a part of a webinar series. So this particular webinar is in partnership with Wellbeing of Women and the Active Pregnancy Foundation. So fantastic to have the speakers that are joining us this evening and also all of you. So the whole campaign that we created through I Wish I Knew was based on people sharing all the things that they wish they knew about their health and bodies and well-being and things that they wish they'd known earlier. And one of the absolute key themes that consistently came through was things that women wished they knew around pregnancy, postnatal recovery, returning to netball. Is my sound okay? I've just seen a yeah, okay. So we know the benefits of staying active through pregnancy is significant. Research from Active Pregnancy Foundation shows that physical activity can be hugely beneficial both during and after pregnancy. Yet 1 in 4 women meet physical activity guidelines. 1 in 4 women meet physical activity guidelines during and after pregnancy, and many women aren't given the guidance to feel comfortable and confident returning to sport. And that's something that Dr. Louise and Ros are going to pick up, evening Ros, are going to pick up on in more detail. So over the next hour, we'll explore some of the key questions that women have posed about how to stay active during pregnancy, recovering after birth and returning to sport safely. We'll hear both expert insights and the player's perspective and hopefully share some practical advice and reassurance along the way. And we'll also be sharing some resources at the end of this and following this call to help you put some of what you hear tonight into practice, whether that's personally or within your netball environments. So to help us get started, we have some incredible speakers with us this evening. I'm just going to introduce you to them. So Dr. Louise Roper, if you give us a little wave. Louise. So Louise is a registrar in obstetrics and gynecology based in London. She was a mother of 3, and to start with, her little, I don't know, 3 or 2 or 1 or however many were in the room were joining. So I think you may hear them in the background at some point. Louise is currently navigating postpartum periods herself, bringing both professional expertise and lived experience to conversations around motherhood and movement. A keen recreational athlete, she is passionate about supporting women to move safely and confidently through pregnancy and beyond. She is currently training to be a personal trainer and is a proud This Mum Moves ambassador. I don't know how you fit it all in, Louise, but that's amazing. Eboni Usoro-Brown, to most of us, that name will be well known and well respected. Eboni is a former England Rose, England Vitality Rose, represented England 117 times across 15-year career, which included 3 Netball World Cups, 4 Commonwealth Games, including a gold medal at the winning Commonwealth Games in 2018. Whilst off court developing a legal career and starting a family. After the birth of her daughter Savannah in August 2020, she returned to both international and domestic netball, competing at the 2022 Commonwealth Games. She's now a proud mum of 2, and she was appointed as president of England Netball in September 25. And also, I'm really proud to say, joined us for the launch of I Wish I Knew in September. So I think it was your first public outing, wasn't it, Eboni? So amazing. Thank you for joining us, Eboni. Ros Cook, Ros specialist physiotherapist and has extensive experience in sports injury rehabilitation and female athlete health. She currently lectures at the UCL Institute of Sport, Exercise and Health. Ros has held senior roles within elite sport, including within the EIS, at the FA and England Netball. Fun fact for the evening, Ros was also Eboni's physio during her time at England Netball. So these two know each other really well. And I think Eboni quoted me before, Ros held Eboni together for quite a few years, probably physically and mentally together. So yeah. Ros is also a member of the Active Pregnancy Foundation and also on the board of the Active Pregnancy Foundation. And then finally over to Jamilah Bruce. So Jamilah is a Manchester-based mum, a level 2 netball coach and co-founder of Warriors Netball Club. She coordinates the Greater Manchester Community Netball League, a grassroots league made up mostly of mums, focused on keeping competitive netball accessible at all life stages. Having navigated her own return to sport postpartum, Jamilah brings a lived experience on the barriers, physical, emotional, logistical, and everything else in between that stop women coming back from the game they love. So you'll see we've got an amazing mix of real experts and real lived experience. So with all of that said, I wanted to make sure we can crack on. So I'm going to start with the evidence, the medical stuff that probably a lot of people want to hear, because I think we can all say this is quite a murky area sometimes, and people have maybe mixed understanding of what all of this looks like in the context of sport and physical activity. So let's get started with Louise. So Louise, from a medical perspective,
Ellie, I think we've just lost Louise, so we might have to start with Ros, and then Teams is having fun. Teams is having fun tonight, so yeah,
it's having fun, isn't it? No problem. Okay, so Ros, to you first. From a physio perspective, what are the common misconceptions around training intensity and risk during pregnancy?
Thank you can you hear me okay, Kelly?
Yeah, all good. Yes. Let's hope you stay on screen.
Yes, I think I should do. Now I've got my Teams glitch out the way. Thank you for that lovely introduction, and it's lovely to see Ebs on the call as always. Ebs and I also share a birthday, so we are just
really?
Yeah, we're obviously kindred spirits.
There you go.
So great question to start with. So a lot of the time when women become pregnant, be that elite athletes or just we'll say sub-elite athletes, we can't all be Eboni, but we all aspire to be that level of netballer, don't we? Yes. There are a lot of misconceptions about should I exercise? Is it safe for me to exercise now that I'm pregnant. And also when you become pregnant, everyone's very keen to give you advice about their experiences, what worked for them, what didn't work for them, mostly is what people tell you. And there's also some sort of old wives' tales that still exist around physical exercise and the impact that may have on your pregnancy. So the current evidence, and the evidence from the Chief Medical Officer, which I know Louisa will talk about as well, is that actually being active during pregnancy is really important if you've got no contraindications to that. So probably, how do you know if you've got any contraindications to exercise? So on the Active Pregnancy Foundation website, there is a questionnaire called a Get Active questionnaire. It's been developed alongside the latest current evidence around physical activity and screening for physical activity and exercise in pregnancy. And what you can do is use that form to self-assess your suitability to exercise throughout your pregnancy, because also things may change. So you may be feeling fantastic in your first trimester. You may not feel so super in your first trimester. You might be feeling really sick. You might be feeling incredibly exhausted and tired. So we know that things change throughout the trimesters, and that is a very individual experience for women. But on that self-assessment checklist, it also highlights if there are any sort of conditions or things that happen during pregnancy that put you more at risk, or you should be cautious of exercising. So the Get Active questionnaire is something that you can use yourself to assess, and you can also use that alongside your midwife, your obstetrician, and anyone else who's involved in your antenatal care. So it's a really good tool to help guide you through that. Alongside that, there is also some guides around suitability to exercise throughout pregnancy and how that changes across the trimesters, because again, your body's changing, your energy levels will change as well. You are growing a human, and that requires a lot of energy and adaptation within your body. So there are definitely some changes that happen musculoskeletally in terms of, we know, around your spinal position, your pelvis position, and also the nature of your ligaments and things like that will become slightly more lax in preparation for later stages of pregnancy and then delivery. So your ability to exercise can change through that period as well. So we would definitely encourage you guys, anyone who becomes pregnant, to try and remain physically active if there's no contraindications to do that. We know that women who are active, and in the population that I see, I work with mostly elite athletes, if active women tend to have, I'm not going to say a pain-free labour, because I think that's a myth and a legend that exists somewhere, but I don't think any of us have probably ever experienced that. But it definitely, if we know that women are fitter and stronger physiologically, i.e. they've got all those benefits from exercising, that can help them navigate that labour and delivery, and tend to have more smoother transitions through that space. Again, those are really individual and they can vary, but we definitely know that being fitter and stronger helps you cope well with what I would say is probably the hardest endurance sport ever, which is birthing a child. Whichever way they come into the world is definitely the biggest endurance sports that any of us will ever do. So being fitter and stronger going into that is probably going to give you a really good chance of having a positive experience and good outcome from that. We also know that it helps very strongly, obviously, around mental health as well. There are a lot of benefits of exercising for mental health, and I'm sure we'll pick up on those from the experiences of our two other wonderful guests on the call tonight.
And what about the context of netball? So
netball. So netball, the fantastic sport that it is. So there is obviously guidance around when sort of participation in netball when pregnant. Now, obviously, we can't discriminate against people participating in sport based on their pregnancy, but we have to balance risk, and so there is guidance from England Netball and the International Federation around participation. So you may choose, because you feel well, to participate in netball, but we need to be aware that, as we see in the Super League at the moment, there is contact, there is contested moments for the ball. It's not a pure non-contact sport as well. there is a risk of contact, and so we've got to be mindful that we've got a growing fetus and a bump, and so we've got to be aware of that and just be cautious around not sort of bumping the bump during our time. I think the other thing to consider is you've got a body that's changing and adapting to this new state. If you've got some previous injuries, I would bet my bottom dollar that most of our netballing family are carrying, you know, an ankle injury or a slightly dodgy knee or a tendon that gets a bit grumpy now and again. And actually during pregnancy, what you might find, because you're carrying more load, because of your body changing, and also your ligaments and joints are changing in response to your hormone shifts, that actually managing your musculoskeletal challenges may also be difficult for playing netball as well. So I think it's, you know, we've got to think of everything. Pregnancy is part of that, but actually how your body's responding in general as well is really important. So there's definitely those things to consider when you're thinking about playing, and also probably the impact on your team and other people around you. If you imagine you're playing against someone who's pregnant, you're probably going to be quite aware of not bumping into them, not going for the ball, and that might change how you move, or people might be really anxious about playing against you as well. So I think, not that we'd want to exclude you at all, but there may be different ways that you could be involved as part of your team, and there may be things that you can do in training, non-contested drills, or if you're a shooter, or, you know, there's loads of options to do to still be part of your team, even if you can't step on the court for that match play.
Yeah, and I guess the key thing there is speak to your local, your GP, and what's right for you, because like we said, every woman is different and every woman's body's different, and the history of the body's different for all the things you just said. So the guidance from the World Netball, which England Netball follow, is to seek medical advice and guidance. We can, Alice, if you can drop in the chat if you haven't done also already, the England Netball guidance, which is, as I say, following the World Netball guidance. That'll help people who aren't familiar with the guidance. So yeah, thank you for that. Just the last one before we go back to Louise. In terms of a healthy phased return to play, can you just give us an example of what that would look like?
Okay, that's a great question. So
is there a normal?
Well, yes and no, I suppose. It depends is probably the best answer for that one, Kelly, because it always depends. So what we need to consider is that generally there is, when we're thinking about returning to people to sport, to activity, a lot of people like a timeline, and they want a certainty of a timeline. The challenge of that is that actually that may not reflect actually how well you've healed or how you've recovered from birth, and that can really vary between individuals. So if you've had a really complex delivery and unfortunately you've ended up potentially with some tearing, or you've had some significant pelvic floor dysfunction as a result of your delivery, that your return might look different compared to someone who's had an elective section. Again, if you've had an elective section, you've had a major abdominal surgery and you need to recover from that, and then also restore all of your strength, your coordination, and all of the things you need to play netball. So it's not a matter of just sort of have my baby, sit on the sofa and wait and then go straight back to netball. I think what we'd want to really encourage people to do is go through some graded return to exercise, and then to assess if they're ready to go back on court. So how do you do that? And actually, this is probably what we should be doing anytime we've had an injury, not just postpartum. So I would say our wonderful netball community are very good at going, I've rolled my ankle, it's not broken, I've checked that it's not broken, but it doesn't look great, but it'll be fine. I've got the swelling down and I've got a really important game next week, so I'm going to strap the hell out of it and I'm going to get back on the court. That's probably will get you so far, but actually the ankle's going to keep breaking down. And the same applies when you're coming back after having a baby, is that actually you need to give time to restore, though, to allow your body to recover from that journey it's been on throughout pregnancy and delivery and labour, etc. It also, you need to adapt to the fact that you've got you've now got an extra person to manage who might be quite demanding. If you're breastfeeding, that's going to require a lot more energy. So that's an extra 700 calories going out the door to breastfeed as well. So there are a lot of different changes, and also you're sleep deprived. So those things combined could also put you at risk of injury. So it's really important that we restore that. Typically, we would say if we looked at a graded return for someone around returning to running and changing of direction, that's normally takes up to sort of 12 weeks postpartum, and that's probably a safe boundary to work in. There's some great guidance available through obviously the NETBALLHer resources, but also through the pelvic health physiotherapy group. So I can pop that in the chat as well. They've got some really clear guidance about return to running. So if I would say to you, if you're going back to netball, you need to be able to run first. I know we don't necessarily sprint, we're not running miles, but we do need to be able to run, and we need to be able to change direction. So we need to be able to tick those things off.
So would you suggest that people just give that a bit of a go first then before they return to court, just see how they can just run and how they feel?
Definitely. And there are some really nice quick ways to check that you're ready to return to run. So if you can walk for 30 minutes with no issues, no pulling, no straining, and no awareness. If you can hop on the spot for a minute on each leg, again, no awareness, no symptoms, no leakage, etc. You can perform some sit to stand or single leg squats for 10. Those are some really easy markers that you can use just to guide yourself. So you need to be able to run, you need to be able to do those things, and then you need to build yourself up around changing direction, then getting happy contesting and defending, and then going back into match play. So try and train for a period of time like you would do after any injury before you go back to match play.
Perfect. That's top advice. Thank you. And a lot of that stuff you just said then people can do at home. You know, as you said, life's changed and a little one to look after, but some of that stuff can be done just to test where your body's at.
Exactly.
So perfect. Thank you very much. We're going to go to Louise. I think you are here, I think. Yes?
I am, yes. I'm
Excellent.
so sorry. Obviously at the crucial moment.
That's all right, don't worry. Don't worry, you've got slides to share, I think.
I have, yeah, sorry. Spot the type A personality, boring.
So my sort of main question to you is what should netballers know about staying active during pregnancy? And Ros has picked on some points there, but I think from a really interesting to hear it from a medical perspective as well.
Sure, absolutely. So let me share these slides with you. Let me find it. Now obviously I can't. Oh, here we go. Got it. Right. Can everyone see that? Can you all hear me?
It's coming up. Yeah, it's just coming, I think, at the moment.
There we go.
Not quite.
Okay. Everyone got that?
Yep, got it.
Okay, lovely. So we can skip through a little bit of it. So this is me. We've already talked about me. We don't need to talk about that anymore. Basically, I'm not your doctor, but I'm a doctor. So this is just kind of general guidance. So what I quickly wanted to talk to people about is trying to conceive. I know there were some questions about that. Just a quick trigger warning. I'm going to mention miscarriage. So if that is difficult for anyone, just so you know, that will be coming up. During pregnancy, what the guidance is, postnatally, a lot of what Ros said, but I'll see if there's anything else I've got there. And then, breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is more from my personal experience than anything. So I know there's personal experiences coming up, so we won't go into it too much. So basically, the idea of light, moderate, and vigorous exercise is what's in all the guidance. So if you look anything up, that's what you'll see. And basically, the most easy way to put that into context is that moderate exercise is a level of exercise where you can talk, but you couldn't sing. And that has been found to be safe for most people in healthy pregnancies or while trying to conceive. So actually, while you're trying to conceive, moderate exercise is safe, but also if your BMI is high, then actually vigorous exercise is also safe if it's bringing down your BMI. So basically, when you're trying to conceive, you want a BMI in the normal range. And if you do that via any sort of exercise, really, that's fine. More is more. So while you're trying to conceive, there's no problem with exercising as much as you pretty much want to, with the exception that if you, I know that somebody asked a question about REDS, so relative energy deficiency in sport. If you're underweight, then again, you want to try to get to a healthy BMI. So you're obviously going to want to reduce your exercise. And you want to therefore keep exercise very much in the moderate category. Also worth saying that if you've been taking the oral contraceptive pill, then that might mask REDs, because you will still have a period, but it's not a period that's it's not a proper period type thing. And then just to say on miscarriage, there is no evidence at all that exercise or any form of activity causes miscarriages. So if someone has experienced that, I'm so sorry about that. But it is not something that you did and not something that you can do. It is just unfortunate that miscarriage occurs in 25% of pregnancies. So during pregnancy, so Ros already talked about the self-screening, and I would definitely recommend using that tool. So general advice in pregnancy. So the CMO guidance is that pregnant women can do up to or around about 150 minutes of moderate exercise, so talking, not singing, per week, and that they should do, if possible, muscle strengthening exercises twice a week. So that can be in the gym, or it can be things like Pilates, yoga, anything where you're have some kind of resistance, whether that's body weight or weight training. When to stop and seek help, that's also really important, and I would again refer you to that self-screening tool, because that tells you very clearly when you must see a doctor and when you should stop exercising. But essentially, pain either in your chest, in your abdomen, so in your tummy, in your bump, or even in your lower abdomen, your lower abs, then definitely you need to stop. If you're getting tightening, so you're feeling that bump tighten and you're having either Braxton Hicks, which is kind of like practice contractions, or you're feeling quite intense contractions during or after exercise, I would definitely stop and seek help then. If you notice any bleeding, any fluid leaking, that is a time that you must go to the hospital. And that can be during exercise, but I would say anytime if you have those things, you must go to the hospital. And last thing would be reduced fetal movements. So if you're not feeling your baby move the way you normally do, whether that's during or after exercise, again, please go to the hospital and they can check the baby out. And of course, lastly, dizziness, fainting, being short of breath, those usual things, especially if they're persistent when you've stopped exercising. Other considerations to make, exactly what Ros said about the muscle and joint laxity. So you've got lots of hormones there, progesterone and relaxin, that are all helping your muscles to relax, your ligaments to relax, because your pelvis needs to increase in width to get that baby out. But also it means that all of your ligaments become more lax. So your risk, particularly in something like netball, where you're twisting, turning, the risk of going over on that ankle, the risk of pulling that knee, much higher. So you need to be careful about that. And again, you know, that's where Netball England is saying about thinking about when you feel that it's right for you to stop playing. Also, you've got to remember that the bump is causing your center of gravity to change as well. So your balance is not going to be as good. So again, if you're changing direction quickly, spinning, turning around, that's going to become more difficult. Just to say as well, on the nutrition, you want your weight gain. So if you were underweight when you became pregnant, then you want to try to gain weight slightly more quickly than someone who was normal or higher in weight when they became pregnant. About 10 to 16 kilos is about normal. Mostly that's gained after 20 weeks. I would personally say that after your first baby, that may change. You don't want to stay in an energy deficiency, obviously. That sounds practically, common sense says that's not a good thing when you're pregnant. But that can, it has a high risk of preterm birth and a small baby. So I guess that's one for coaches to look out for as well. It's for everyone to be aware that is a risk, really. You want to avoid exercise in hot places. But things like hot yoga, don't do that. You know, don't go in the sauna afterwards, all that kind of thing, because baby typically runs about 1 degree higher than mum. So you don't want to make the baby too hot, and you don't want to be lying on your back. So if you're doing something like Pilates or yoga as your muscle strengthening exercise, you don't want to be lying on your back because it's going to compress the vessels, and then firstly blood's not going to get to your brain, so you're going to faint, and secondly blood's not going to get to the baby, and we do see babies in compromise when women do lie flat, so don't do that either. So postnatal period, I think again a lot of this I would say Ros touched on, but it depends how you deliver your baby. So if you've had a vaginal delivery, you've got risk of tears. So an OAC, you can see here, is obstetric anal sphincter injury. So that's when you have a tear that goes into your back passage, into your bottom, basically. And after that, I would 100% recommend, before you return to any form of exercise, really seeing a specialist physio. There are, you know, pelvic floor, women's health physios. The hospital should refer you to them automatically. And it shouldn't take a long time for you to get that appointment. You should be getting that within 12 weeks. I know that does sound like a long time, but actually you shouldn't be exercising before then anyway, because this must be sorted before you start exercising, or you're going to have pelvic floor problems. If you were lucky enough to have a vaginal delivery where either you had no tearing, or you had quite mild tearing, or you had an episiotomy where they sometimes make a cut, that's the 2nd degree tearing as well. That will be repaired at the time, and it should heal fine. But again, pelvic floor is always an issue. So if you're having any dragging sensation, or feeling heaviness in your lower abdomen or in the vagina after delivery, and you're thinking about returning to exercise, I would really recommend that first you see a specialist physio, because they're fantastic, and they can do so much to help you sort that out first. Because if you start running again when you're already experiencing that, the chances are that, you know, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, you're going to be experiencing some pelvic floor problems. So pelvic floor is really important to get better. If you have a cesarean delivery, we usually say don't lift anything heavier than your baby for 6 weeks, and don't do any vigorous exercise. So that would definitely be playing netball for 12 weeks. That, again, it seems like a long time, but actually when you have a newborn baby to look after, that will fly by. So yeah, and then just a general point, if you have any bad smell from either your C-section scar or a tear scar, any pus or fever, please go into to your triage or your A&E. Kelly, how am I doing for time? Should I stop now?
Yeah, if that's okay. That's an amazing amount of information. And
sorry.
Yeah, brought back a lot of memories for me. So thanks for that.
No problem.
But yeah, brilliant. And I'm sure people on the listening back to this or on the call will take a lot from that. So thank you. So I'm going to hand over, if you just pull the slides down, Louise. I know, sorry, you're doing it.
Yeah,
if I can move to Eboni, just to bring this to life from a player experience, and people have been joining as we go, but Eboni's a big name in the netball world, had huge success on the court, has managed a big career, and also has had 2 beautiful girls. So pretty impressive, and just wanted to hear about your story, really, Eboni. So I guess the question to you is, from an elite athlete perspective, how did you approach going and staying active during pregnancy? You just heard all of that from Louise and Ros. What did you do, and what support did you get, or what support did you need that you didn't get?
Yeah, thanks. It's a real pleasure to be on this. It's all bringing back lots of memories, to be fair.
Remember.
Indeed. No, I was in a really fortunate position, because when I fell pregnant in the December of 2019, and I got married in 2018. I think we always knew we wanted to start a family. So I was fortunate to be part of that Commonwealth Games team in 2018, and then the World Cup team in 2019. And naturally, in a 4-year cycle, the first year is probably the prime opportunity in which to probably divert your attention, I guess, away from the court. So I fell pregnant in December, as I mentioned, but I just spoke to my coach at the time, who was Anna Stembridge, because I was playing at Team Bath. And I think without her and her guidance, really, I think the steps that then followed, or the foundations that were then put in place for me, probably wouldn't have happened. But from that point, I still continued to train up until I was probably about 8 or 9 weeks pregnant. Only Anna and obviously my family knew at the time, but it was really important, as she said, during that time, just to again still have strength and conditioning program, look at my nutrition. I still wanted to be active and to be part of the group and the team that I was part of, and I think that really helped me. I thought it was really useful what Ross said earlier, in terms of, whilst I couldn't be on the court as I got later into my pregnancy, I still very much remained in and involved in and around the club, so I still felt part of something, and I think it didn't necessarily take away my identity in that space too early. And I was really thankful for that, because I was able to reintegrate myself back into that group after I had Savannah. So there's two ways to look at it. Obviously, COVID was a really challenging period for everybody. But from a personal perspective, the league was cancelled because of the nature of what was going on in the world. So if I was ever going to have a baby, that was the time to do it, because I didn't really miss out on everything. So when I returned to the sport after having Savannah, I kind of started in the same place as everyone else. I was really fortunate in the sense that I think I was active quite a lot during my pregnancy with Savannah. I was walking every single day. I think if you follow me on Instagram, you were like, stop walking, and how much I was walking. But I had a vaginal birth with Savannah, and it was probably about 5 or 6 weeks after that is that I decided I was ready. And I think that's probably one of the most important things just to kind of probably convey, is just that don't rush it. It's probably time your newborn baby that you're going to get back. Your body's obviously recovering. And I think the words, I think at the time that sort of kept getting repeated, it was just be kind to yourself in those moments, which I think was so important. And I think at that 6 weeks.
Can I just add, did you were you playing at that point? Were you ready to go into the performance?
No, not at all. So literally it was just getting back in the gym.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And you felt that was right for you, and you were making those decisions for yourself.
Yeah. And it started, the start of that process just started off with walks, walking up hills, just going for half an hour walks. I was wearing a tubey grip almost around my waist at the time to again help support my abdominal pelvic floor and my abdominal muscles. And yeah, it was just walks, and like uphill walks, so really light. And it was also what I found quite useful was, also you could take the baby with you, so again just getting some fresh air. And for the mental space, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was only probably about 5 or 6 weeks into just walking in and moving that we started to reintroduce a strength and conditioning program. I know it will probably be very different for many on the call, because you probably wouldn't have as much infrastructure around that elite setup that I did. But I think from a basic perspective, the things that I was able to access was, and I would definitely encourage anyone to go and see, is that make sure you go see a pelvic floor health specialist. I think that's critical. Regardless whether you're an elite athlete or you're in the grassroots or in the community level, because I think just that insight of that knowledge and the exercises that I was just able to do at home, just to make sure that my actual, I said, pelvic floor health, I wasn't necessarily leaking later on down the line. And I think it's something we probably need to give more consideration and bring more awareness to, just the significance of trying to get that right early on.
And I think, Dr. Louise, you may be able to answer this, but you can get referred through your GP, can't you, to a specialist? So if that's the route to go down.
Yeah, and then I think after that 6 to probably 6 to 8 week phase, I am what they call the reconditioning phase, which so it was progressive strength work, particular focus on my glutes and my pelvic floor, as I mentioned. And I probably have to be honest, it was absolute hell. It was so challenging, I think. And I think it was more because you go from being an elite athlete and your body looking a certain way, and I guess your body and your brain being so connected, and then having to relearn all of those movements, and appreciate that you're not gonna do 2-3 sessions and wake up tomorrow and be the person you were even 9 months beforehand. So what I did that was really helpful is I just created like a video diary. I did like a journey back to the court on Instagram, and for me that was like transformational, because on those days where I found it more challenging in terms of just trying to get if it was strength and conditioning or get back to the court or being frustrated with my progress, actually I was able to look back and think to myself, okay, well, 2-3 weeks ago, I wasn't doing what I was doing now. And actually that mental, like, positive kind of memory really kind of served its purpose, even when I got to 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line. So it was just, it was really, really helpful.
And I think like you said, and I think maybe Ros alluded to it as well, it's grassroots level. It's getting your body and your mental back to a state where you want to return to court.
Yeah, I think exactly that. And I think the biggest message is that returning to training is definitely different from returning to performance. And as an athlete, regardless of what level you're at, you just need to make space and time for both.
Sure.
Like netball places significant load on your Achilles, your knees, your pelvic floor. So jumping and change of direction should be reintroduced really carefully, because whilst it might feel good in the short term, it's also the long-term considerations you really need to pay attention to.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, top stuff. And I just move over just to get Jamilah's perspective. I think, as you said, the support you get as an elite athlete. I mean, there's still the challenge the same, and you know, you're still a woman of changing body. But yeah, really interested just to hear if some of that resonated with you as well, Jamilah, from a personal perspective, but also from the women that you're around and you coach.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, everyone. A lot of what everyone said so far has really resonated, given that I'm still pretty fresh postpartum. So my daughter is 15 months old, still feels like she was born just last week. So my return to playing was quite smooth, to be honest, when I did finally get back. So I suffered with mother's wrist terribly. Didn't have it in pregnancy, but after she was born, the minute she came out, I had this terrible wrist in both wrists. So coming back to playing was not on the cards for a while, but I also had a C-section. So I was not seeing myself playing for a good while, and I had quite a complicated recovery with like recurring different types of infections. But when I did eventually come back, my experience was quite smooth. I would say possibly because 3 of us on our squad all went off at the same time, so we planned that well.
And why was that? Because just out of interest, was that because you stayed connected and you were talking about all the stuff going on in your bodies and you could return together, or what was the?
No, we all just got pregnant within 6 months of each other. So one baby was born in September, my daughter was born in December. Yeah. And the baby was born in February. But we're all friends as well, so that gave us a nice little new mum community, which is great. And we, you know, we were friends before, but equally that was not great for the rest of the team. But I think because we'd had so many pregnancies prior to this point, we'd learned quite a lot. So we sort of had a bit of an idea about how to navigate it, because obviously it's not just you going off and having a baby; it affects everybody else that's involved in the sport that you play with. So our team was great. They kept spaces for us so we could come back. A lot of the things that we do at Warriors is all around making sure that sport, netball in particular, is accessible for mums. We know that mums face greater barriers to returning to sport often than the partners do. So our whole ethos is all about finding somewhere for everyone to play, no matter what level you play at. So we have this mentality, in particular on our squad, that, you know, we win together, we lose together. So everyone sort of sucked it up and said, right, well, we'll recruit some other temporary players who are going to sort of fill that gap, and we'll be really upfront with them and say, you know, we've got these mums and they're coming back, but we don't know when. So that made my return quite smooth on the whole. And I think one of the things that coaches and leaders within clubs can sort of take from this and our learnings is that in order for those changes and those sort of absences to be well received by the rest of the squad, we've learned that the leadership of squads in particular really needs to model that culture and that sort of openness and welcoming mums back. Like I say, we found that a lot of our players are mums, so they understand that, you know, you come back to anything after having a baby, and, you know, your confidence is all over the place. You don't know which way is up for a little while. So it just takes a bit of time to sort of get yourself together. So by sort of modelling what we want to see and that culture of openness and being welcoming to mums and supportive to mums, it means that the rest of the team sort of support that as well, and they're bought into that vision and that model, and then they know that maybe when they go off to have their baby, they're also going to be welcomed back.
Can you give us an example of what that looks like? So that's a really, really good point, and particularly for a team sport, it's tricky, isn't it? Because, you know, making sure that you've got open spaces to welcome everybody back. So what does that look like in terms of your culture?
So what we did on the team that I play for in particular, we talked to the captains, who were really excited because we all love a baby as well. And the captains knew that they wanted to have space for us to come back. So they sort of opened a conversation with the wider team and said, right, we want these players to come back. We've all played together for years. We're all great friends. So we are going to be looking for some recruit some players that are going to fill that gap for however long that is. We were really honest with them and said, look, you know, we've got people coming back. When they come back, you can stay, but that means that we will be over recruited on the squad, but we'll have breaks, weeks off, whatever. So everyone sort of understood what the vision was and understood that this was the model that we were going down. And the team were on board. They were like, you know, we're not going to have our friends around who we've played with for years for a while, but we're okay with that. We're going to suck it up. We're probably going to lose some games, but, you know, the glory days will be back. We win together, we lose together. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. And I'm just thinking, Alice, we need to get a case study and put it on the NETBALLHer website, because I think there's we've definitely had lots of questions through I Wish I Knew campaign around how does a club and a coach manage this, because it's tricky to navigate and you've got to have that culture. So I'd love to be able to, you know, take your story and be able to share it with others. So yeah, thank you. That definitely answers my question.
And then you had some other questions. So we talked about practical challenges.
Yeah, the challenges. Yeah, please.
Are we okay for time to go through that?
Yeah, just a couple of minutes and then we'll open up to questions. Yeah. Okay,
brilliant. So practical challenges. We have sometimes issues around scheduling, particularly if a game is at bedtime. We've all, you know, no one wants to get the baby out of that routine. We're not, I'd rather die than miss bedtime. So we by having extra players and, you know, excess players, I guess, on the squad, that allows us to sort of mitigate that. We're pretty flexible around kit because, you know, confidence, is my kit going to fit? I'm not going to lie, I don't even know where my dress is because it's been that long and I don't think it would fit me. So, you know, we're pretty flexible, and generally as a club, we're pretty flexible around how people want to present themselves on court. So that was quite straightforward for me. I think confidence was probably a big one. You know, you return to work and you're like, can I still do the job before? Or, you know, you've got baby brain. I don't think that ever goes away. So, you know, everyone understanding that you're going to be coming back, you're going to be a bit nervous, and everyone sort of being mindful of that and welcoming everyone. That really helps and helps people to feel sort of at peace. I know I was quite nervous about returning and, you know, coming back to play with my friends. But they know I don't like too much fuss, but they did start singing Guess Who's Back when I started playing again, so that was good fun. You know, just welcoming everyone back in, and just be mindful of that. We also offer walking netball instead. If people want to ease in, we might say come and play half a game if you want, or a quarter of a game. It's all very sort of no pressure. And I just again emphasising that point about over recruiting, because that really does give you that space and flexibility for people to come back and not feel pressured to come and play a full game, having not played netball for a year or so.
And you know, a lot of what you've just said then should be a culture regardless. You know, if someone's gone off for an injury reason, and having that culture to come back. If someone's, you know, I've written down, you go from baby brain to menopausal brain, and I'm definitely in the menopausal brain, and we hear lots of stories of people who, you know, walk in netball, back to netball, and actually just having that space where you can just be you, and, you know, and just that culture actually should be there anyway, shouldn't it? So some really top tips there. Can I move on to questions from people? Is that okay? Alice, you won't be able to tell this with people on the call, but Alice is actually living and breathing this content right now because she's pregnant. So hopefully she'll be able to share some gems of what she's learned, but hopefully also be able to share some themes or questions from the chat. So over to you, Alice.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm just sorting out very quickly, spotlighting everyone again so that you can see everyone's faces.
Right, thank you.
1 second.
While Alice is doing that, just thank you to the panel for such useful insight there. And I think just from there, there's definitely common themes on how we should be looking after our bodies. And I think, Eboni, you said just being kind to ourselves. I think there's so much pressure, isn't there, on what we should do, what we shouldn't do. We get so wrapped up in what we're allowed to do or what other people think, and that fear of judgment. Or actually, we just got to go with what we feel is right for our body. And I think, you know, that's and also then creating a culture where we can feel like we it can be us when we're ready to be, whether that's in an elite environment or in a grassroots environment. So thank you for sharing.
Thanks for filling. Kelly.
That's all right, you go for it.
As Kelly just mentioned, I'm actually 24 weeks pregnant myself, so have found this incredibly useful. Some stuff makes me squeal a bit, and I'm hoping that it won't be that bad, but you know, so many people on this call have already been through that journey, so it gives me confidence as well that I can do it too. The first question, we've had a few questions in the chat and a few people have messaged me. So the first question that I wanted to ask, which is probably to Louise or Ross, I'll let you decide who answers it, but is around breastfeeding whilst postnatally, and whether, you know, how that works in terms of returning to netball. And then I guess Jamilah or Eboni, if you've got any experience of it personally, or you know, people that have, and how they've kind of managed breastfeeding and returning to play, that would be really interesting. So Louise or Ross, I don't know who wants to take that one.
I can start, and then if Louise can.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm going to go on the practicalities of it. So first thing first is, you have got, if you are breastfeeding, amazing. However you feed your baby, a fed baby is a happy baby. So there is no judgment in either directions here. If you are breastfeeding, that is 700 calories going out the door every day. So you need to make sure you are hydrated and fueled. Plus, if you're exercising, as we've already talked about, you're at risk of relative energy deficiency or low energy availability is what we're talking about. So more calories out than calories in. And that's a big challenge for women in the postpartum period because of how your body looks, etc., and all of the things that go with that. But you need energy in your system to produce milk, and you need that to also exercise. So calorie intake important. Another practical thing, supportive bra. So feeding bras in general are sloppy and comfy, and we love them, but they are not going to do your breast tissue the best job. So you can get sports bras that are designed for feeding, or you can get some sports bras that have got Velcro clips into them that you can then pop down. From personal experience, I ran, as Eboni will remember, ran everywhere during my pregnancy and postpartum, and generally with a buggy, and would quite happily stop and breastfeed in the middle of the park, etc. So babies don't mind sweaty boobs, but they do want milk, so you do need to be hydrated. And the other thing I would say is, practicality wise, if you are going to training and you are breastfeeding, trying to feed before you go is a good time to, again, also manage the volumes in your breasts as well during that period, and to help maintain your supply as well is really important. I'll let Louise pick up the rest because I've probably missed stuff, but I will put a link into the chat with advice from the Australian Institute of Sport of how to breastfeed as an athlete.
Yeah, I don't think I have much to add to that at all, really. I heard the other day that there is apparently people have been concerned that if you're exercising, that the cortisol level or something in your milk might be too high, or there might be. That's not true. You can breastfeed and exercise, no problem. You don't need to wait. As far as I'm aware, it's absolutely no problem. I think, obviously, as Roz said, boobs might be sweaty. If the baby doesn't like the saltiness, give them a wipe. But otherwise, you know, and also a hungry baby, I don't think cares at all. So yeah, there's no problem with that. Yeah, I use I've got a sports bra that unclips, so I also run a lot. Yeah, I have a sports bra that unclips. I think the only thing I would say on that is, as mums, we do run everywhere with the buggy type thing. And I think it is great if you can get out to training and not take the baby with you. I think that's great for your mental health when you feel ready. I think there's obviously maternal anxiety around that. I think, you know, if you're breastfeeding, that might be harder, whatever. But if there is at any point an opportunity where you can do exercise where you don't have to take the buggy or the baby or whatever, I think that is really good for you. So maybe aim for that at some point when you feel ready. That's not really answering the question, sorry.
I'll just jump on that. So I had my feeding journey with Savannah went up and down. So in amongst going back to training, I actually pumped. So I used to go to training with a cooler in the car, ice blocks in the cooler. I'd have my pump just before I got out of the car, capture my milk in like was plastic milk bottles, put that inside the cooler, go train for 2 hours, then got home and then put my milk in the fridge and then that transfer it into bottles for baby to be fed. So majority of my feeding journey was through pumping, just because of the nature I was on the move. But I think the key thing is Roz and Louise have said, it's just a fed baby is the happiest type of baby. So whatever works for you, but the pumping for me just gave me a level of freedom in order so I could stock up and put milk in the fridge and know that baby was getting as much, well, it was similarly getting the milk from me in the way that at that time I had the option to deliver. So I think there's lots of different ways, but getting a good pump and a good pumping bra from Amazon similarly for those moments. I think each pump took about 20 minutes, but it is again a commitment in terms of in the beginning stages, and I was pumping 8 times a day just to build up my milk supply. And then it obviously decreased to about 3 or 4 times a day because of the volume I had. So again, that's another alternative option just to consider if you want to go back to netball and you're on the move. Just buy a very good cooler, some ice blocks and some bottles, and actually you can still deliver in the same way.
Great, that's been really helpful for me, if no one else. So hopefully other people have found that useful too. Just conscious that we haven't got loads of time left. Question for Louise: is there any advice for if you were quite active pre-pregnancy and then ended up stopping for various reasons towards the start of your pregnancy, but now feel like you want to get back active again whilst pregnant? And is there any advice for getting going again, basically, is what they're asking whilst they're pregnant?
Sure, yeah. So I would say it obviously depends how long you've been out for. But yes, certainly. So the CMO guidance, I don't think I touched on this actually, is that if you were active pre-pregnancy, you are safe to continue the same activity that you did pre-pregnancy. Obviously, if you have been out for a while, then that might change it slightly. So I would say just start gradually, and you can build up to that 150 minutes a week or whatever it was, or up to where you were before if you feel able to. I think don't potentially be too ambitious with it, in that you might not, during pregnancy, you're unlikely to get back to that stage that you were at pre-pregnancy before you took some time out. So don't put that pressure on yourself, but build up as much as you feel your body allows. Just try to be as in tune with your body as you can, but yes, you're safe to do so if you build up slowly.
Great,
I don't
thank
know
you.
if you might have something to say on that.
Nice quick fire on that one. And then another one which was aimed at Eboni, but I'm gonna let Jamilah answer it because I think you might have you might also have a response to this, so we can hear from everyone. Did your midwives or any other medical professionals, GP, etc., support you back to playing netball or back to exercise at all? And if they did, what did they do, or what was the advice that they gave you?
I don't think I'd be best placed to answer this because I had mother's wrist for so long, I didn't return to playing until she was around 12 months old. So by that point, I'd been well and truly discharged from the midwifery team and my GP. So I'm going to hand over to somebody else that could probably answer that a bit better. But thank you for trying to include me.
Let's throw it back to Eboni then.
I was going to say yes, they did, just because ironically my midwife was a huge netball fan, so I thought it was kind of awkward initially because I was just like, okay, you're going to now see my private parts, but it is what it is. But no, she was just more very supportive in terms of what everyone's probably said in terms of maintaining being active during my pregnancy, and she was very reassuring in relation to that. So similar to what Jamilah says, I got discharged, I think it was on day 10 after I was born, but during my pregnancy, in terms of my visits, in terms of taking my blood pressure, my wheeze, and understanding my movement, my weight and stuff, I think she actively encouraged me to be as active as possible.
Great, thank you. We haven't managed to cover every question, but we will try. I know a couple of people in the chat have asked whether we'll be sharing the links, etc. After this. So we will try and answer any questions that we haven't managed to cover when we send a follow-up after this webinar, as well as all the brilliant, useful links that we've shared in the chat. So don't feel like you suddenly need to try and open all those links before we finish the webinar. But I'm going to hand back to Kelly now.
Thank you all. Yeah, so as a follow-up to this, as Alice just said, we'll circulate the recording that of the session this evening, as well as the resources that have been linked, but also other resources as well. So I'm presuming, Alice, they will go to the people's emails that they've signed up with.
Yes.
Right, yeah. And then we'll also be hosting this webinar on the NETBALLHer website, so people who are wanting to listen back can go and watch it there. So lots of ways to access, and I'm sure we'll be posting out through socials as well. So yeah, lots of ways to access the recordings post this, and the stuff that you've written down that you want to watch back on, then crack on and go for it. The final point from me is to say that this is a start of a series of webinars. I said it right at the start, but we have other webinars to follow across all of the key life stages. They'll follow a similar format, so expert as well as elite and grassroots voice. So hopefully you've enjoyed that mix tonight, and we'll follow that theme through with the other webinars. So have a look at the NETBALLHer website. It's got the dates and the themes of the webinars on there, and you'll also be able to sign up to them. The next one off the blocks is puberty, and you'll be able to sign up to that, I think, next week. We'll get the bookings up and running. So thank you, a massive thank you again for the panel, for sharing so openly your experiences and as well as your expertise. So thank you again, and also for those that have joined and taken time out of their evening with no doubt busy schedules at home. So thank you all, and we hope to see you all again soon. Take care.